And welcome. This is Peter Winick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on our podcast today, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. So I thank you for that. Today, my guest is Dusty Staub. Dusty is the founder and CEO of Staub Leadership. He's the author of 6 or 7 books here and more in the pipeline. He's a certified forum facilitator at YPO and WPO. He's a fellow in the School of Engineering at Virginia Tech. What else can I say? CEO and founder of his own company. He's been in the content space for quite some time, and I appreciate him spending time today with us. So, welcome aboard. How are you, Dusty?
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. I'm also was a licensed marital and family therapist to add to that list.
There you go. Okay, that's an interesting list. So let's start on let's start on the authorship side for a little bit. So you've written I don't know if I got the number right, 6 or 7 books. How many books have you written?
I have 4 published books, 2 more in the works right now. And the first book was came out in hardback in 1996. Executive Excellence was the publisher, and it was the heart of leadership, 12 Practices of Courageous Leaders. And then the next 3 books followed that.
So give me a sense. So that's over 20 years ago of how, from an author's perspective, the publishing landscape has changed.
Oh gosh, it has gotten so much easier to get a book out now with Amazon and with the on-demand printing. And if you know how to leverage Amazon and the book lists and the on-demand printing, you can get a book out there very quickly, and you don't have to incur huge costs to do it. I did it the old way, where it was agents and publishers, and most of the publishers will get behind a book briefly, but it's like 4 or 5 weeks. And then you have to have a platform. You have to have connects. You have to have a way of getting it out there. Fortunately, through keynote speeches, through the consulting work we do, we sell most of our books that way.
I want to talk about that disconnect right there, right? So even if you do get a big publisher and the publisher wants your book to succeed, because that's how they make their money, you said they're only behind it for 4 or 5 weeks. And obviously, your books are of an evergreen nature, and your consulting and your speaking and all the stuff that come from your books, you're not doing that in 4 or 5 week cycles. So how do you reconcile that inherent lack of alignment?
Well, you got to remember, in the publishing world, it's a numbers game, and only a small percentage of books are really going to make the publisher money. They're going to lose money on many of the books they put out there. It's almost a crapshoot in some ways, and they're very, very selective. And yet, even with that, a few are really going to make them their money. And so they'll put maybe 4 or 5 or 6 weeks worth of marketing effort behind it, and then they're on to the next things. And they may not even do that. So to be a content leader means that you need to be promoting your book, your materials. You need to be putting it out there. You need to be making access to other people. You need to be using things like thought leverage, like the services you provide. You have to have some sort of platform and some way of connecting with key customers, potential clients that can really benefit from your material, from your thought leadership.
So it's not just about writing the book, is what I'm hearing, right? Because a lot of folks think, well, my job is to come up with great content. My job is to create the thought leadership, and this other universe of publishers or whoever will make it win. What would you say the ratio of effort or resources applied towards the writing of the book versus getting the book out into the universe is? How would you put that ratio?
Well, going back over 20 years, I was very naive. I thought writing the book was 90% of it, and then the marketing and publishing and other stuff was just 10%. You write something great, and then it's just, it's minor work to get it out there. The actual ratio, as hard as it is to write a book, that's 10%. 90% of it is how you market it, how you package it, how you put it out there, the platform, the connectivity you have, the social media. And in fact, writing a great book without having a well thought out plan on how to get it out to the larger world and then being willing to commit to following through is like giving birth to a baby in a back alley and abandoning the baby.
And now you've done this multiple times. So I'm assuming your skills on the marketing side and the getting the message out have evolved and developed over time. What are the things that you are doing or plan to do with your upcoming books that you find to be impactful and effective today?
Well, I'd say there's 3 things. One, I'm talking to people like you who have a network and thought leadership to help get it out there. Second, I'm working with groups of CEOs. One CEO can 1,000 books. And I believe that the slow way is trying to sell your books one at a time. Whereas the real concept is, can you sell hundreds of books? Can you sell vans of books at a time? Well, in a speech to 350 people, I can sell 350 books. And if a couple of senior leaders in there, that could be several thousand more books that get ordered.
Excellent. So now again, books are but one leg in the stool. So let's talk about sort of your business. You've got books and you've got systems and processes and proven marketing tactics to get those out into the world. Then you've got speaking and then you've got consulting. Could you walk me through how that's sort of a holistic ecosystem, if you will?
All right. So I think of it as like a three-legged stool. You need all three legs to be able to sit with some security. One is you have to have good content, a good product. And second leg is you have to have a platform from which to deliver that. And third, you need to have some sort of service understanding agreement, working relationship with other providers, other thought leaders, where there is a right. So LinkedIn is really powerful there. Facebook can be very powerful. And as I said, I'm no expert at this yet. I'm just beginning to realize the importance of all of those things because I've been, as I said, for many, many years, I was focused on just generating the content and delivering it to my client systems. But I realized for the larger universe of people out there, I sold 40, 50,000 copies of my books, but that's nothing compared to some of the authors who are my heroes who've sold millions of copies of books. They've reached millions of people. So I really want to reach many, many more people. And so leveraging those things I just talked about earlier is really critical. And I'm still just at the beginning stages, I believe.
Got it. I was looking at it more from the lens of the product suite. So a book is a, $20, $15, $25 product. It's a way to get somebody exposed to what you stand for, what you believe in, your content, your framework. But then what? What is it that you hope if, you 20,000 copies of one of your books out there, what do you hope happens? What is the plan?
Okay, Peter, I misunderstood your question.
No problem.
I would say, for instance, my second book, The Seven Acts of Courage, Bold Leadership for a Wholehearted Life, was picked up by a CEO at an airport. He called me and said, "I want to do trainings." And I said, "Yeah, look at the very last page in the book." And he did, and there was a list of trainings. He says, "Well, I'd like to have you come to my organization." Well, that turned into a $65,000 sale for consulting, doing training with the senior leadership and the next level of leadership around how to have more courageous conversations and have more courage in their organization. So I think the key here is you have your product, you have your content, you have your book, your articles, whatever. You then need to have what's the program or the service provision you're going to have to help train people how to use it. So the book is a resource, but it's also in a way a calling card, and it's also a way of saying I've got something to offer here. So you have your product offerings, your service offerings, and then what's your follow-up? What's the consulting follow-up that supports that? So that what we want is for individuals, for teams, for organizations to be able to evolve, to grow, to feel real value, and to get that value. The book is just one small piece of that. So it's all the things that follow up. We have programs, we have consulting services, we have coaching services that all back that up.
So walk me through that piece then. So you've got some very impressive and stellar clients that you've worked with for a long time and for lots of people in their organization. So I'm assuming the first sort of exposure they have to you and your thinking is someone picked up a book somewhere, right? Or an article or something like that, or they saw you speak. And then tell us how some of those engagements have unwound for you and turned into long-term, big, sticky client relationships.
Well, all right. So one CEO who had worked for a Fortune 500 company left after 25 years and has had a startup that he was working on that was worth about at the time he involved us was 20 million. He had read actually an article I wrote about multiplying the effective intelligence of organizations years before, thought about it, went on Amazon, realized I had a couple books, ordered The Heart of Leadership, was very impressed with it, called me up, went to New York, sat down with him. We had a heart to heart conversation for about 2 hours. And he brought me into his startup. And we started working with them when they were like at 20, 25 million. And and doing the work with him, I said, I want to work with the frontline people because they were manufacturing low pressure sewage systems. I said, I want to work with the frontline people. He says, well, most of them don't have high school degrees. It's a waste of time. I said, That's where most of the breakthrough ideas are going to come from. I just need to work with a senior team so you don't stick your fingers in and mess it up. So we trained the senior team. Then we started working with people on the factory floor. Well, they went to 60 million over the next 2 years. They were able to double production without any more adding people, and they were able to decrease costs the first year by 300,000, and they were able to come up with a way to assemble their systems in 7 steps versus 15 steps. All those ideas came from the factory floor. So, that was one way our engagements can unfold.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about the importance and the strategic use of speaking. So I know you do a fair amount of speaking. What is it that you're looking for in terms of an audience and positioning? And tell me about sort of your philosophy and your thinking as it comes to speaking.
All right. So speaking is a entertainment. It's a form of entertainment. You need to be entertaining, and you need to have substance, and you need to be passionate. What communicates to an audience is a sense of commitment and passion, that you know what you're talking about, and that you get them to laugh, you get them to think, you get maybe even make them uncomfortable a couple times. So I want to entertain, I want to get them to laugh, I want them to be a little uncomfortable at times. I want them to walk out with a couple of concepts that are interesting to them and one or two insights of value. That's my focus. Is all right now. So the audiences I want are decision makers, or decision influencers, CEOs, presidents, senior vice presidents of HR, heads of OD, people who head up training, anybody around HR, human systems management, or human resources management. Those are all decision influencers or decision makers.
Got it.
Those are the people that can choose to order 100 books, 1,000 books, 10,000 books. Those are the people that can bring you in for follow up conversations where you listen to their challenges, issues, the pain points, show them what you can do, and that's where you close the deal. And about 85% of the time when we're at that stage, we get the business in terms of working with people.
Get the business meaning follow on business. Somebody saw you at a speech and then they want to talk more about how you can help them.
Yeah, and it's really the topics that you talk to are depends on the audience you're talking to, around how do you improve profitability through higher employee engagement? How do you deal with excessive conflict? How do you deal with the lack of effective communication? How do we begin to help people have more courageous conversations because we keep getting caught by surprise in our organization and it's never a good one? So there's all kinds of topics you can talk to as long as you have expertise behind it, because there are speakers out there who are selling fluff.
Yep.
And there are people out there who do not have the competence. So, for instance, I was dealing with a man who he teaches couples how to have better working relationships, but he's been divorced 3 times, and his new relationship is only 6 months old. So I say, check your sources.
Yeah, exactly. So let me ask you this: you're able to clearly articulate the exact niche and the exact audience and the exact market that you want to speak to. How do you get there? How do you get to them, right? And how do you say no to those that don't fit your criteria? But how do you find the audiences that are of most value to you in terms of speaking?
Well, associations. So, what I would say is you look and you say, all right, I want to talk to manufacturers. Well, what's the Manufacturers Association? I'd like to talk to public safety officers. Well, what's the Association for Public Safety? Underwriters associations. So you contact the association of the group you're interested in and the industry market segment you're interested in, and you have a couple of videos of you speaking for 10, 15 minutes, and you get the interest, you get them to look at it, and they realize you get invited to speak to their association. And you might speak to a local association before you get to the national association.
But they've done the hard work of filling the room with the like-minded people that you want to be in front of, right? So they've got a room with 300 people or 50 people or whatever it is that meet your criteria.
Exactly, exactly. And so then it's a matter of you're making sure your message fits the audience. It's making sure your price point fits well. You don't want to be the most expensive speaker out there, but you don't want to be a cheap speaker either. If you've got something of value, it needs to be priced in the right range. So those are all parts of it. And then, of course, if you had a speakers bureau behind you and a well-known speakers bureau, that really helps. But there's a lot you can do on your own without that.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. We've touched on the books, we've touched on authorship, we've touched on speaking, touched on workshops. Tell me how you in your organization separate sort of training slash workshops, that piece of it, from consulting? What are the differences in how those things look, how they operate, who you're selling them to?
Oh, great question. I would say that the way I separate it is consulting is an ongoing relationship where you're in there helping to either facilitate some conversations, providing some ad hoc information and guidance. You know the key players, you know the system, you know the organization, and you're there and you're brought in. It could be once a month, it could be quarter, it could be twice a year. We have all kinds of consulting relationships like that. Where, by the way, our consulting relationships typically run with a client. We're usually involved with them. The average is 10 years.
Yeah,
They keep
nice.
inviting us back because they keep facing new issues, and we keep helping them think through those issues. And so it's being an outside source.
I want to just touch on that for a second because that's a big deal. So, for example, many people struggle to get speaking engagements. The duration of the relationship is about 56 minutes, right? And you knock it out of the park and then you go on and do the next thing. You're developing 10-year relationships with your clients based on your expertise, your content, your connection to them. That's a big deal, right? And that's a totally different operating system and operating model than most speakers have, where it's, off to the airport and onto Atlanta or wherever they're going.
Yeah. So let's say I give a $20,000 speech, and I give, let's say I give 10 of those a year. That's $200,000. But if I give a $10,000 speech, what I'm looking for are one or two people in there who felt moved and touched and want to take it deeper and want to go further with it. And that out of that, I'm going to get one or two 10-year long relationships, which turns into hundreds of thousands of dollars of income, and I don't have to go out and prospect for them. They're there. Plus, those CEOs tell other CEOs, those senior leaders tell other senior leaders, those senior VPs of HR tell other senior VPs of HR, and that builds credibility. So if you think of you've got really good content, you've got a book, you've got material, and you're going to give a speech, and that's how you're going to make your money. That's just the tip of the iceberg. If you really have value, you want to build value added relationships where you can add value over time. And that really leads to evolution. Unfortunately, consulting's gotten a bad name because there's so many fly-by-night consultants, and they want to sell you a silver bullet. There is no silver bullet.
Yeah, no, it's hard work and you got to constantly provide value, obviously, but there are long-term relationships to be had. So last sort of category here, or last sort of phase, you are the author, you're the CEO, you're the speaker. So let's say you're the rock star in your organization, right? You're the first point of connection that clients have. How do you deal with that in terms of, from as now put on your CEO hat, how do you scale sort of you Inc.? What are the things that you've put into place and the systems and processes so that every client isn't dependent? It's not dependent. Your growth isn't dependent on you have to have an excellent relationship with every client because there's only so many hours in the day for you to do that.
Yes. Well, the way to scale it is you find talented young people or people who have a passion and a desire. So I find psychologists who have a real in-depth understanding of people and can negotiate and learn quickly about business. Or I find an MBA who happens to have a really high emotional intelligence quotient and can learn the psychological, because we blend psychology and business acumen, IQ and EQ blended together to produce effectiveness. And that's what, so our form of consulting is very demanding. And most MBAs can't do it, and many psychologists can't do it. It really requires somebody who's got a little bit of both. And so I've been able to find some of those people, and I usually have them go with me and meet the client, and we talk about what we're going to do. I provide strategic oversight, and I introduce and get that young consultant or that new consultant in there working with them, and they begin to realize the power this person has. Plus, I charge a lot more than my adjunct consultants do, or the consultants working with me do. And so they say, look, you can have me. Here's my price.
Sure.
And I've only got so many days I can give you. You have this young man, this young woman. They are very talented, and I will be available to them and to you as needed. And so providing that strategic bridge and and I do a lot of coaching with my consultants and some with the clients they're working with, but mostly with the consultants. So the consultant really comes across as really knowledgeable and does a great job. That's the key, and that's how I'm beginning to scale my business because as you say, there's only so many hours in the day, and I don't want to be on the road as much as I used to. And so, getting these consultants out there, and I'm experiencing some great success with that right now.
That's great. So it's a combination of having an eye for talent and making that a part of your everyday, that you're looking for a certain type of qualified person. And then the second piece, to sum up, is using pricing as sort of a discriminatory way, right? Hey, if you want me, that's great, but I'm this, and that's all fine and dandy, but I can get you some great value at a substantial discount to me, and they're great and they're fine and they have access to me and all that sort of stuff. So pricing is another way to sort of force the scaling, if you will. Well, this has been great. You've shared a lot with us from a lot of different fronts and a lot of experience. How do people find you if they're interested in talking to you or working with you, or where do they get you?
There are two websites. The business website is staubleadership.com, and Staub's just STAUB, staubleadership.com. That connects to a YouTube channel where there are like 40 different short videos of me talking about different things. Also access to all the books. And then the other website is theactsofcourage.com, which is meant for the general public, for families, for teachers, for educators. The Acts of Courage, because we want to get wholehearted leadership and more courageous living out to the larger world.
Excellent.
By the way, Peter, this has been wonderful talking to you. It's been a lot of fun. I love your questions.
Oh, thank you. This has been great. Well, I appreciate your time, and I enjoyed this as well. So thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experience with us. Thank you. To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.